Well, I'm with David Brown from High Bickington Community Property Trust in Devon, and High Bickington is one of the first, possibly the first CLT in England to receive planning permission for a housing development. Now, High Bickington isn't just about housing, is it? So, David, can you tell me what it is that you're trying to do there?
Yeah. We've taken a view that we wanted a holistic approach to the future of the parish. We needed to make sure that we had a parish that could have affordable housing, but it could also have workspace, it could sustain local businesses, and it would have good community facilities. And so we wanted to put something together that delivered that. So we ended up with a scheme that has 39 houses in total, of which 23 are market houses and 16 are affordable for a mixture of rented housing and equity share properties. We've got a linked primary school with community facilities, so that we've got state-of-the-art facilities, but we make good use of the school outside to school hours. It's all linked together. We've got a sustainable approach to the development. We're going to deliver a 70% carbon reduction across the whole site. Part of that comes through the community woodland we've planted, but part of it, and quite a major part of it, comes because we're going to have a district heating system that is based on a wood chip approach, so using local wood fuel.
Okay, let's just go back a bit. Why is this needed?
Well, it's needed because our young people didn't have a future, and our businesses didn't have a future. Youngsters were going away to college, but there was nothing to come back to. Housing was too expensive. The cheapest house, when we started this, the cheapest house in the village was nearly £300,000. A property that 15 years ago would have gone for 50,000 was now going for 250,000. So there was that problem. Work was a problem. We didn't have a sufficient bus service. You could get the youngsters to college in Barnstable 10 miles away during term time, but they couldn't get back in the evening other than coming back from college. So once they'd gone through college, you need to go to Barnstable for work, can't get there. Well, as time has gone on, and I think a lot to do with the project, we end up now where we have 4 buses a day each way between Barnstable and Exeter. It's fantastic, you know.
So what else have you achieved so far?
Well, I mean, I think the community cohesion that comes from this is an important part of it. You know, we've tried very hard to involve the maximum number of people. So when we planted the community woodland, the whole primary school was out there doing the planting. So we had 67 kids and 50 odd adults, and over 3 weekends we planted 3,000 trees. The children have moved on from there now. They've got an allotment as part of that. They've got their own part of the woodland. They're growing vegetables that they're selling in the school to parents. So as a grandparent, I occasionally now get a bag brought home that's sort of got potatoes or leeks or broccoli or whatever in it. It's lovely. And the kids are living and starting to, I think they're more into sustainability, frankly, than my age group. I mean, they understand where we've got to go.
But the housing has been the most difficult bit, hasn't it?
Yeah.
How long has it taken you to get planning permission?
Well, we started 10 years ago, was when the voluntary organisation Project 2000, we called it then, as its name suggests, and it's taken us nearly 10 years to get the planning permission. So, you know, back in 2003, it took from November 2003, when we put the application in, until May 2006, when the government turned it down after a local public inquiry.
And why did they turn it down? Was there a lot of opposition?
No opposition. In fact, the inspector started the inquiry off by saying this is an unusual situation because the authorities and the applicants are all singing from the same hymn sheet. So there were half a dozen objectors to that first application, all who lived within 50 yards of the site. I can understand their problem because they don't want things built in their backyard. But he bent over backwards to allow them to have their say. In the end, he came up, we didn't meet this sort of sustainability criteria that you had to have a half-hourly bus service. Well, nowhere in a rural area has a half-hourly bus service. You can't meet that, but that was government policy.
And that was the grounds for refusing planning permission?
That, he said it was too big a development, even though it was all laid out in our parish plan, approved by the district council and the parish council. He said we were building too much affordable housing. We were offering 36 affordable homes. At that point, the district council said they needed to build 950 homes a year for the next 10 years to meet their affordability criteria, because we were saying, as a parish, we needed to meet our own needs, but we would also extend out to other rural parishes within 8 miles of where we were. So we were effectively covering about 25% of the district council area. But he said 36 houses were too much.
So that must have been very disappointing. This development that virtually everyone supported, being turned down on what seemed to be bureaucratic grounds.
Yeah, I mean, people just couldn't understand it, and we went through quite a dip after that in terms of just trying to keep the community on board, and it was jolly hard work to do that, because
people get very cynical?
Well, they said, well, what's the point? You know, we've seen all this before. You know, people say, well, this is what we need, and we're going to let the community decide its own future. But what happens when you do it? This is what happen. Fortunately, we managed by, you know, slogging away at the needs. We did another housing needs survey. We involved people in some new plans. We managed to get the community back on side, but it could have been disastrous, really.
So what now? Because you've gone back with another planning application.
Well, that went through the district council in a very short space of time, about 16 weeks. The government office decided not to call it in this time for a planning inquiry. One long-serving county councillor said to me afterwards, David, he said, I've just read that letter from government office that says they're not calling it in. Aren't they the very reasons last time they used for turning it down? And that's how it felt. But so it hasn't been called in. We've still got a little hiccup over the Section 106 agreement, because even though the members have approved the planning application, it was subject to this agreement being sorted out. So the kind of tenancies that we're offering, which is we've got what we call a tenancy plus program, which would allow people to rent from us, and after a period of time when they left us, we would work out what they'd paid us, what it had cost us to run the house, and we'd pay them back the rest so they could then move on to the housing ladder. Use it as a kind of deposit, may even be staying in the same property but becoming an equity share owner. That doesn't fit with the local authority plan. So now, after 10 years, in spite of all the members of the local authority, one relatively junior member of the district council staff has tried to stop us doing what the intention was. So we'll get there, and the agreement will be signed. I mean, because we've got the senior members and the chief officers on board, I think, you know, we'll push it through, but you have to go through the process. So 6 months on now from the planning permission being agreed in January, we still haven't technically got a planning permission. We'll have that, and we hope to be on site later this year.
So with any of that, you'll be building later this year?
Yeah.
And how soon would people be able to move into the new homes?
I think that if we can raise this, we need to raise cash flow funding and so on, and we're only doing the affordable housing in phase 1 because we want to see the market improve before we do too much market housing. But on the basis of starting the affordable between October and Christmas, we'll have people moving in June next year.